Hello, good afternoon class. How are you doing? Hope that you're all fine and well. Before we start, I would like to thank you for our discussions earlier before we start this video talking about our last week's lessons where we study about daytime and nighttime. Thank you for your input on that, and I see that you have know a lot about what we studied about last week. Today we're going to continue our lessons in Unit 10, page 98 through 99. And our subject will be high tide and low tides. Now, let me ask you this. What are high tides and low tides? Can you briefly explain that to me? You can post something up on our Telegram post about high tides and low tides, and what are they, and what can you do during these events? That is my first question to you for this lesson. What are tides? What are low tides and what are high tides? Can you give me some example? Okay, class, can you bring out your book and turn to page 98? While I'm waiting for you to turn your book, some of you might already answer me this question. What are tides and what can you do during high tides and low tides? Okay, on page 98, entitled High Tides and Low Tide, it is the continuation from our last week's lesson, which we discussed earlier before the video started. Okay, I'm going to read to you the first two paragraphs on page 98. If you want, you can also read it with me. And after we read, we will discuss some of these questions and some of these photos I have up here on board. Again, I will upload these photos onto our Telegram post so you will have a better viewing of the pictures and you can have a better understanding of what high tides and low tides are. Okay, class? Now, are you ready to read? Okay, starting from the top. Number 2, high tides, low tides. High tides, low tide is a result from the relationships between the sun, the earth, the moon, and their gravities. The sun has a strong gravity pole, but it is far from the earth. The moon has a less gravity and it is near to the earth. Therefore, the moon has a stronger pull on the earth than the sun. Okay, let's go back to that paragraph. They say the sun is further from the earth, right? This is the sun. Let me draw this sun for you. And here is our earth. E-A-R-T-H. Excuse me about my spelling. This is earth. I'm just going to put an E that represents earth. And this is our moon. I'm going to put an M that represents our moon. Earth, sun, and the moon. It's our little planets. Okay, so as the articles knows and as we know through our previous studies, the sun is farther away from the earth than our moon, right? The sun have a bigger and stronger gravity pole, but why does the moon have a more stronger gravity pole towards the earth? Why is it the gravity of the moon is stronger to the earth? Correct. If you say because the moon is closer to the earth, that's why the gravity pole is stronger, you are correct. They say, therefore, the moon has a stronger pull on the earth than the sun because the moon is way much closer to the sun. If you put two items or two magnets closer together, you know the magnet will pull, right? Pull or distract depending what side of magnet you use to face each other. Just say the sun is a bigger magnet, but it's so far away, the gravity pull is less than the moon to the earth. Okay, as we will learn later on, the gravity pull of the moon will have an effect on our high tides and our low tide depending on the positions of the moon. We will also learn that later on. As you see in this diagram right here, ocean tides and currents. For high tides to occur, the moon have to be facing the other side of the earth, or have to be on the other side of the earth, because the gravity pole is pulling this way, so that means it's pulling all the water towards this way, which creates low tide. Again, I will upload this picture for you on your post so you have a better viewing and understanding of which side the moon has to be on to create high tide or low tides. I can see this current here, I see these pictures here. The moon is on the farther end of the earth and it creates a low tide on each section of the earth. Okay, continue reading on the next paragraph. High tide is the phenomenon of rising sea level. You can notice the current rise and flow to the shore, including lakes and rivers and the seawater it reaches. And low tide. Low tide is the phenomenon of receding sea levels. Okay, now that you have read high tides and low tides, can you explain to me what high tides are and what low tides are? If you say high tides are, with this reading of this passage, it said is the rising of sea level. So that means water rise during high tides, and during low tide, water recedes. Recedes mean it draws back or it drops down lower. Receding mean the water is dropping down lower. As you can see, the pictures here I have in this footage, it's a picture of a boat near a shoreline. During high tides, you can see there is a lot of water where the boat is floating, right? And see the water comes all the way to the shoreline, all the way on the top here. But during low tide, you can see this picture here, the boat now is on the ground and the water recedes. I mean the water is traveling backwards way back here to a different shoreline. That is the difference between high tides and low tides. And this is also another picture of a high tide and a low tide. As you see in the picture of the high tide, the boat is floating on water and the water line is way up here. And during low tides, you can see the boat is on the ground where it can't be moved and the water line is way back here. So that is what you call high tides and low tides. Okay, class? Okay, now part of question 1 I have to do, what are the two types of tides? Yes, if you say the two types of tides are high tide and low tide, you are correct. There are only the two types of tides that we have known. But under high tides and low tides, there are also called seasonal tides. We will discuss that later on. And my second question to you is, if you have a house near the coast during high tide, what might happen to the house? So for example, if you have a house near a river or near a coast where the high tides come, what will you think might happen to the house? Please post something up on our Telegram post explaining to me what will happen to your house if you have a house that's really near the water line or near the shore. Yes, if you said your house might get flooded or water might recede and goes into your house, you are correct. I mean, water might creep up and go into your house, you are correct. And my third question to you is, during high tide, what is the alignment of the sun, earth, and moon? Okay, the word alignment, we have learned about this about a few weeks ago. During high tide, what is the alignment of the earth, sun, and moon? So this is the earth, the sun, the earth, and the moon. What is the alignment of the earth, sun, and moon for there to be high tides? Alignment means how it lines up. What position are the sun, what position is the earth, the moon to each other? According to our text here, during high tides, the earth, the sun, and the moon have to line up in front of each other to create high tides. High tide is also called spring tides. I will post this up on our Telegram post so you can see. Spring tide is another name for high tides, but we will discuss that later on in our next video. Okay, class, I want you to read page 98 and 99. I have to read page 98 and 99, and I will post up some more descriptions of the earth positions in relationship to the sun, which can draw or pull back the tides. As you can see on our picture on page 98. See, the bottom is black and white, but I will also upload some color pictures for you. Say how the highest rising tides happen. So this is the alignment. This is the alignment of the high tides. So the sun got to be here in the front, the earth and the moon. So the moon have to be on the other side of the earth for there to be high tide, because the gravity of the moon the gravity of the moon will pull all the water this way, so leaving us with high tides. And for low tides, you see the position of the moon's orbit, the sun, the earth, and the moon. The moon have to be at an angle to the earth. So for there to be low tide, which it's called neap tide, the moon have to be on the side of the earth, where the moon gravity pulse, you can see here, will pull all the water down to the south pole, which leaving us with low tides. That is called low tides. Okay, class, after you read page 98 and 99, you will have better understanding of low tide and high tide and how the gravity of the moon affects the tides. Okay, this is the end of our first video. We will discuss more on our Telegram post about high tide and low tide and the position of the moon after I post this picture up. And also after this video, let me know that you have finished watching this video, and I will post up your first task. Your first task will consist of 2 pages, a lot of readings, writings, and some drawings of the positioning of the moon, okay? I will give you 30 minutes to complete this task. Once you complete this task, let me know and I will correct it for you. Also, if there's any questions or things that you might not understand or you need help on, let me know and we will go through this as a class, okay? Okay, class, see you in our next video. Hello, welcome back to our second video for today's lessons. In today's lesson, we discuss about high tides and low tides. And thank you for submitting to me your first task. I've seen that you have understand what high tides and low tides are. High tides are, most of you said, are when water rises. And low tides are when the water recedes. Recedes means when the water drops backward, look back. As you can say through my questions here, if you have a house near the coast during high tide, what might happen to the house? And most of you have said that the house will get flooded or will be swept away by the sea. Thank you for answering that question, and you are correct. If you have a house near the coast, like this example here, your house will get flooded. Just like the body of the boat here on this picture. During high tides, the boat can float. But during low tides, the water recedes and the boats now sit on the ground. And the positioning of the moon related to the earth is really important on how it draws the gravity of the earth, meaning it pulls the water, which creates high tide or low tide. And yes, most of you said, for there to have a high tide, the moon have to be on the other side of the earth, away from the sun. Which the gravity pulls of the moon pulls all the water towards the moon, which leaving us with low tides on the southern hemisphere, but high tides on where we live, which means in Cambodia and the rest of the world we have high tides. So thank you for our discussion about that on our Telegram post. And if you have any more questions about high tides and low tides, you can also ask me, and we will continue our discussions on high tides and low tides. Some of you have also pointed out to the examples on the book. The book also gives us really good examples, but they're in black and white. And hopefully you have seen the posted color picture that I posted up on our Telegram post, which have a better view looking off where the positioning of the moon, the earth, and the sun is at to cause high tides or low tides. As you can see here, for high tides to happen, the moon have to be on this side of our planet. For low tides, the moon is either on the sides of our planet, not facing the sun. So please write this all down in your notebook, because we will have questions about this next week, and also there will be questions about this in your final exam. So write this down, keep a good note of it, okay, so you will have quick access to it when you need it. Okay, class, this is the end of our second video, and at the end of this second video, I will post you your second task. This is your second task. It's a continuation from your first task. It also has 2 pages. But for the second task, I want you to read the first page of the articles and record your voice and send it to me. I will also upload this on our Telegram post and tell you what section to read so you can read it and post me your voice. Okay, class? You can post this on my personal Telegram or you can post it on our group Telegram so all your classmates can hear you read. You will have 40 minutes to complete this task because it's pretty more difficult than your first task. And once you can finish it, please send it to my personal Telegram so I can correct it and give you back your score. Okay, see you in our third video. Hello class, welcome back to our third and final video for today's lessons. During our second video, I have reviewed what we have studied today. So I will do just a brief recap for you before I give you your homework on this video. Today we have talked about low tides and high tides and how important it is on the positioning of the moon, which causes high tides and low tides. Hopefully you can see the pictures I have uploaded on our Telegram post, seeing what high tides and low tides are so you can have a better example. I would like to also ask you one quick question. Well, actually this is a bonus question. I will upload this bonus questions onto our Telegram post. Okay, let me ask you this. During which tides or which phases of tides is it best for you to go pick up crabs on the shoreline? So during which phases of the tides where you can go around pick crabs from the shoreline? Again, I will post this question up on our Telegram post so you understand and see the question fully. And you will have till the end of the video or the end of our lesson today at 5 o'clock to answer me this question. I will give you 4 bonus points if you have answered me this question, okay? But class, please answer me your questions in my personal Telegram post so that way you give a chance for all your classmates to answer. Okay, so everybody will have an opportunity to answer this bonus questions. But once you have finished answering this question, post it up on my personal Telegram and I will tell you if you are right or wrong, and you will have the bonus questions. Again, like last week, some of you answered in our group Telegram post and a lot of your classmates didn't have a chance to answer that bonus question. Now I want you to answer it in my personal Telegram so I will give all of you a chance to get the bonus points. Okay, now on to your homework. Your homework will consist of a lot of readings and answering questions and some positioning of the moon. Again, remember homework is due before we start next week's class. I keep reminding you every day and I will remind you again when we study. It is really important for you to do all your tasks and all your homework because it will go on to your overall score. Whether you pass the 4th grade and move on to the 5th grade depends on if you do your work. So please submit me your work, okay? Okay class, till we see each other next week. Be safe, stay healthy, and goodbye.